New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Divine Interventions. I am Michelle Wadley, and my partner is Catherine Duca. We are here to marry psychological understanding with spiritual sensibilities, helping you to see the world through a filter of love and acceptance. We are here to blend the profound realms of spirituality and psychology to bring you a unique approach to practical happiness. Because we know that in the midst of life's challenges and struggles, you can find peace, joy, and fulfillment by harnessing the divine within and the power of the mind. It is our intention that each show will be a journey into the heart of what it means to be happy in a distracted world, a world that can often seem to be upside down. We'll share practices, insights, and actionable strategies to create a sense of peace and calm in your life so you too can discover the joy that lives within. If you're ready to become the architect of your own life, join us weekly as we travel together to the place within where love resides. Greetings and welcome. Michelle Wadley here. Welcome to Divine Interventions. My partner is
I'm Catherine Duca. Great to be here with all of our listeners and with you, Michelle.
Good to see you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. And to anyone here listening, we appreciate your time and your listening. And we're happy to be here and to bring to you a blend of spirituality and psychotherapy, so to speak, so that to find the tools and the skills necessary to build those muscles to be really it's about being emotionally healthy. And so we're glad you're here and that you've chose to spend this time here with us. So Kathy, before we talk about the show tonight, I'd like to just kind of give a little shout out to the CSL convention where I just spent almost a week with my husband. And this is the first time in the history of CSL that we celebrated as an organization, that we celebrated Black History Month. And the week was, it was only like 4 days. I keep saying a week. But the convention was filled with colors and music. And I don't mean skin color. I mean like the flavors and nuances that really have never been there before to that degree. And so it was stunning. And the stage was filled with, people of color, with trans people, with conversations around how to be an ally to all kinds of people. So I walked away a little bit confused at times, but stimulated, stretched. There were aspects of it that were not necessarily easy, but growth is never, not never, but right, growth takes something, right? I mean, do you agree with that?
Always.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's never easy to go outside of our comfort zone.
Right. So, but it was exciting, and I do love getting to see my colleagues, and God bless Zoom. I'm so glad it's here, and I love seeing the individuals that I got to see. And I definitely walked away. I reminded that I do love that I'm part of this Science of Mind global community. And I don't want to be, I don't want to do the whole, it's the best teaching in the world thing. However, However, I do
We
think,
love it. We love it.
yeah, and I do think that there are aspects of who we are and what we do and what we have to offer that are true salve for humanity's a lot of humanity's ills. Humanity
Hmm.
I don't know who said that, but thank you.
Well, that's
Um,
great because you were you were the keynote speaker.
I
Were
was one of them.
you
Yeah,
were the keynote?
there were a number of us. And it was really good. It took a lot. I got prayed up, but what I knew, because me being me, I'm going to talk about the down and the dirty and the ugly of life, at least a little bit. I didn't do the deep dive. I didn't want to I didn't want to make it a therapy session, for Pete's sake. But I do know that I must have spoken to a portion of the attendees that didn't necessarily see themselves represented in the other speakers, because for me, I have a sensitivity to people who have been in struggle. I have a sensitivity to people who have known abuse and the things that a lot of humans go through, but that we don't talk about. And I feel that it is incumbent, that's the word, right, upon me to speak that into the room when I have an audience, because the world isn't all rainbows and butterflies, which is kind of funny because the background tonight is butterflies. But the world isn't all rainbows and butterflies. The world isn't a Hallmark movie, which was kind of a funny thing because the speaker that preceded me, when she described her talk, she said she was talking about how much she loved Hallmark movies, which we all thought was hysterical. And she went on and on and on about the predictable outcome and the nature with which Hallmark movies are made. And in my description, I said, love isn't a Hallmark card. And so we kind of had that balance. Although she did, her talk was brilliant. It was just we hit that idea on both sides. But most people aren't really living this like perfect life all the time. And I think it's important for those of us who are able, you being one of them, who are able to have a loving conversation with individuals, to let them feel like they're not alone.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that
Yeah.
they're not, right,
That they're included, that
yeah,
that they matter, that each of us matters, and we
and
want
that
to
there's
extend
hope.
a hand.
Yeah, and that there's hope, and that hopefully, and I don't know what's people heard. um what I always the message, and you and I have spoken about aspects of this when we were creating this show. The way I say it in my mind is, we never have to live at the mercy of anything, not now, not ever, which is not a very uplifting idea. It's just one of those things that hits you between the eyes. And so I think it's important for those of us who are capable of being in that conversation, for people whose lives have not been idyllic. I think it is our role to say, okay, this is what happened to you, but this is not who you are. And that, hopefully, that's the message I left. Yep, I was abused, but I
Mhm,
am not.
mhm.
I am not that abused. Yes, I've had pain, but I am not the pain. Yes, I have, so that we have experiences, but we're not limited by those experiences. And I really hope, and I'll have to find out from someone who listened to it, whether or not they feel like that was the message I left them with, because that's what I was hoping for. I
Mm,
wanted to leave them with that.
mm, mm.
You know.
Listen, I know you well enough to know that one of the things that matters most to you in your life, and by extension, when people come into your center. I know
Mhm.
you just retired from the pulpit. I still think of it as your center and your legacy, and others are now stepping up, and it, it is evolving into something else. But the point that I'm making here is that your arms are open to everyone, and that's not just lip service.
No, right.
It really matters. By contrast, I just want to share briefly share a story. A couple of months ago, I went to a mass, actually. That was a funeral mass. A friend's mom passed away, and it was a Roman Catholic, which is the religion of my upbringing. And when it came time to receive Holy Communion, by the way, this friend of mine, is an out lesbian, and many of us in the congregation there, in the audience, in the pews, were LGBT, and the priest, and I know he was doing what he believed was his priestly duty to make this announcement, but he said quite sternly, and actually, with a pointed finger, now communion is only for Catholics and only for those Catholics in good standing. So I remind all of you, and he went on, he said this like 2 or 3 times. And then, I tell you, it was kind of a painful moment.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Moment, right?
Especially since the Pope is kind of coming around.
Coming around. Yeah. Look, these old ways of thinking, and this was an older priest, and you could tell that he was a kind man. I mean, that's how I perceived him.
Yeah,
this was the party line years ago, but I mean, when I looked up, because I happen to have been,
he needs to update.
So many people were like, just doing what you did, visibly, like, oh gosh, and I thought of the contrast. And anyway, isn't this what we want for ourselves and for the world? Reach out your hand, and if someone reaches out a hand to us, let's take it.
Yeah,
let's take it.
And again, and this is not new conversation, but we don't have to agree. We don't even have to approve if you think you have the right to measure and judge someone's sexual orientation and their leanings. But we have the capacity to still sit side by side and be in conversation, gentle and loving conversation. Good evening, Dana. Yeah. I don't know who this is communicating on New Thought, but yeah, I've heard that. And of course, I'm not Catholic, and so I've never had that, that experience. But I know enough about the Episcopal Church to know that they are kind of Catholic light, Catholic gay friendly, right? Catholic women friendly, because they have women priests and such.
Yes.
So,
yes. 2 friends of mine are Episcopal priests, women.
Oh, there you go. I mean, to me, if I love the Catholic teaching and I was gay, I mean, I think that's where I'd go. But, what do I know? What do I know? But I do, my heart breaks for people that are sitting there and are openly gay and not accepted by their, that's just, it's just sad to me. It's just sad.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I have really encountered very little to no discrimination that I'm aware of. I mean, I in my jobs, and I never experienced that. But I have to say, in that moment, the atmosphere was like stung. It stung.
Sure.
And I think of people who may not have such a support network of good friends and mentors and such, and who can feel a little alone.
And the spiritual community that not only there's no tolerance, there's a celebration of. That's the one of the beautiful things of the science of mind communities, right? You're not somebody we tolerate, you're somebody we celebrate, you know? I mean, that's
What a distinction.
yeah, yeah,
What a
yeah,
distinction.
completely. Um,
So how do we segue now into our topic for tonight? I mean, I think this is actually an interesting background topic of inclusivity, exclusivity, because we're here to talk about boundaries tonight, right? How to establish, or the need to establish, healthy boundaries.
right.
Right.
And before we completely break away, um, I it is one of the most beautiful things about religious science, science mind, whatever you want to call it, centers for spiritual living. And I do want to encourage our listeners who are in attendance at a community like ours. If you know someone who is not feeling comfortable where they are, who is not, in a spiritual home where they are completely loved as they are, I want to say to you, drag them. Don't be polite. Drag them into a science of mind community where when they're seen and loved and accepted, that their spirit can soar. Bribe them if you have to. Like when my son was young, you used to bribe him to go to church by taking him out to brunch afterwards.
Oh,
And I want to say one more piece. I grew up in a very small spiritual community when I was knee high to a grasshopper until I grew to an young adult woman, and then my teacher moved away. And we were a community at the time, I would say, of misfits. We were the place, you looked around the room, we were white, we were black, we were gay, all varieties. And I can remember there was this grouping of lesbians. And I love these women. And I can't remember their names. I was so young, but I remember feeling so loved by them, like so encased and loved by them. So my relationship with gay and lesbian people as I matured into my years was just, it's like, oh, this is home. This is normal for me,
mhm.
and it just reminds me, it's just always a fond feeling, and it's a safe feeling. And the people that have come to my community over the years, it's truly a wonderful thing. That's all. I just wanted to say that because I have this little tickle inside of me from just those relationships and how wonderful they were.
Yeah.
And
And I
yeah.
just want to say, as someone who was literally dragged into your center years ago, I mean, I'm a draggee, right? I was dragged, and
I
you know,
do that.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
um, and you know, I didn't know anything about your philosophy or anything, but I knew what I felt when I left. I
Mm,
knew what I felt. And I felt something, and I couldn't even put my finger on it, but whatever it was got me to go back the next week and the week after, and so on and so forth. So, because as what would you call it? Would you call it a tagline? It's more serious than a tagline, but religious science of mind is not just. I mean, it's a way of life. It's a
mhm,
philosophy, right?
mhm, mhm.
So,
Yeah.
many of our listeners, I'm sure, are, well familiar with New Thought, but, some of our listeners may not be.
Right.
And so, if you're new to this teaching, I want to emphasize that unlike religious practices, this is a way of being.
Mm,
This is
mm.
not something you turn on or turn off. There aren't too many commandments that I'm aware of. It is a philosophy and a way of living in humanity,
Right.
right?
The God, it's just I love, especially, I feel very blessed in our community at CSL North Jersey. And it was so fun to be there today just as a supporter. Um, but I love the diversity. Like when I go someplace and it's, and that is lacking,
Mhm.
there's something missing inside of me. You when you go into a forest, and I watched a number of things last year, a couple of a number of different movies, and read some different books I read about about a healthy forest, what it takes to have a forest
Mm.
healthy. In order to have a healthy forest, you don't have just one kind of tree.
No.
Because if you and forests that that were created by man, or where we did it on purpose, they're not the healthiest forests. Old growth forests, they feed each other and they feed off of each other, and there's a communication that happens through the mycelium, and they do support. And the little trees, the big trees don't try to keep the little trees from getting the sun. There's this beautiful dance and synchronicity that happens, that can't happen if you're all one way, if you're all one color, if you're all one way of thinking. Even um even if you're what's the word, disagreement, like disagreement, healthy disagreement, where we share the figuring it out of who we want to be, or where we meet up or not meet up with ideas. It grows us.
It's beautiful. It's a
It's
beautiful exchange. It's an intimate kind of thing, isn't it? That to have rich spirited discussion, right?
Yeah,
It edifies all the parties involved.
yeah, yeah. And I'm sad for the parts of our country that don't know it, because it's a safe and beautiful way to be. It's a safe and beautiful way to be. But all right. I'm glad we talked about that, because it feels rich, and it feels very, very now. And I mean, we're leaving Black History Month, and we're moving into, evidently, March is Women's Month. I'm not so sure when that happened, but so that's that'll be interesting to take a look at all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tonight we did come here to talk about boundaries and creating healthy boundaries. And I don't know. I don't know that I am an expert on this at all. For me, this is very cerebral. There are some places in my life where I have experienced and established healthy boundaries, but that's kind of new for me.
Hmm.
So, you know, you're going to have to chat with us through this tonight, because I have a feeling you're going to have a much more to say about this. Social Workers Month, March. Social Workers Month, March, really?
Uh, Thanks, Dana. If I
I
knew that, I forgot, and so it's nice to be reminded.
I did not know that. Okay, very
Thank you
cool.
for that. Thank you for that. I love this topic. I love this topic, and I'm not saying I love it because I've nailed it in my own life, but I think we both aspire to try to have more and more healthy boundaries. And the thing about boundaries is, establishing healthy boundaries, it can sound like a heavy topic.
Yeah, that
And I
sounds.
mean, it is an important topic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But we can we can establish boundaries and have a light touch at the same time. In
Okay.
fact, I tend to think that the more in touch we are with our boundaries, the less worked up we have to feel if someone encroaches or gets a little too close to the cones. With boundaries, we can, there's a way in which we can say, oh, too far. We don't have to get all excited or all worked up or necessarily, angry and aggressive. It's like you know where your own cones are.
Right,
And
right.
I think commanding respect comes from that deep knowing. Demanding respect, I think, is another matter. But I think when we know what our rights are in relationships, um, and we're comfortable with what our rights are, uh,
Mm.
we can just kind of issue a quiet,
Mm-hmm.
do not, stop right there. This doesn't work for me. This is not what I had in mind. So anyway, I'm just saying that I think we can talk about the topic and still maintain kind of a
Mm-hmm.
lightish touch.
Yep, yep. The um the other day I was having a conversation with somebody, and we were not in agreement about the subject matter and about the subject that we were discussing. But what I love is that we both had the wherewithal to say we needed to stop, breathe, get out of the conversation, and then revisit it. And it was so, I felt like that was it. It wasn't a spoken boundary. It wasn't something that was communicated in advance, because this kind of came as a surprise. But it was really quite beautiful to be in that dance with somebody and not feel not feel like, because I had recognized that I was like digging my heels in about something. I'm like, what am I attached to here? Why am I, what am I attached to and digging my heels in about? And then I could feel my body. And that's, oh, thank God for learning that, right? That
Mm.
my body was communicating to me. I wasn't really, I wasn't being the way I wanted to be. I know, I don't have to be right. I don't have to be right. Matter of fact, a lot of times I'm just wrong. And I'm comfortable with being wrong most of the time. Most of the time. Sometimes I feel a little, off about it. But it was a beautiful thing to be in conversation with a mature, spiritually grounded individual where we got to recognize, oops, this conversation isn't working.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, it has sense of completion, and I do think that was an unspoken kind of boundary that we had. So
Yeah.
that was.
Well, I think what you're describing is a type of boundary that we don't maybe usually doesn't usually come to mind when we think about boundaries. There are different types, right? There are boundaries of space. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
right? What is the? Do you know what the standard proximity is of a personal space? How many inches it is? I think
No,
I
I
read.
don't.
Yeah, I think I read. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 18 inches. That feels a little tight to me, 18 inches, but 18 inches to 2 or 3 feet is considered one's personal bubble.
Yeah,
And
and I would guess that would be flexible depending upon who the people were, right?
who the people are,
If you're
right?
standing close up, 3 feet, Dana said. If you're standing up close to me, it's not even gonna rent any space. But if somebody I don't know comes too close too fast, I might go, "Oh, okay," you
Right,
know?
right,
So
right.
I guess there's a variance. There's a variance to the who, what, and when.
Well, there is, and I think that gets at an important point, which is boundaries don't have to be brick walls. Boundaries can be permeable and porous and dynamic, and depending on the person or persons or circumstance, we can relax the boundaries at will, and we
Mhm.
can also, make them more. What's the word? More um, wall-like, I guess. More rigid.
Well, I
at
like the
will.
word you use, dynamic. I like that word.
Mm,
That's something that's in flux, and it's creating out of the necessity of the conversation, or who's present, right? Or who's
yes,
present. Yeah, I
yes.
like that. I like that idea.
So
Um,
I think there are boundaries of space, right? There are
mhm,
boundaries of time, right? We want to protect our time boundary, and so we do that so that others, unintentionally, most often, don't encroach on our time too much, or don't take advantage of our time, or let's say waste our time,
mhm.
right? So being aware of how much time we have to give to something or someone is important. And if someone tries to take a little too much, it's on us to say, oh, you know, that's not in my time budget right now,
Right, right.
or this is something I choose not to do right now. Yeah.
And, this is a cultural thing too. This is massively cultural because, um, I was, wanting to do some volunteer work down in, Costa Rica a few years ago, and I was in conversation with these ministers who were there at the time. We were trying to put a volunteer vacation together. It didn't work. I'm sad that it didn't work.
Mm.
But what we talked about, how the flow of the people there and the villagers, and they had built, actually, this ministry had built a bridge so that people could come from across the stream for meals that they would provide. And somehow we had discussed timing, and they said, "Yeah, they show up when they show up." And I'm like, "Oh, wow. I don't I don't know that. I don't know how that works." But what I like to entertain when in this conversation is it doesn't make me right because I think something should be a certain way, but I'd like to remain open to say, "Huh, maybe there's another way," because there are cultures. I mean, come on, in Europe, they have 2 and
Oh,
3 hour lunches, 2 and
absolutely.
3 hour lunches, and we're like, "Go, go, 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 go," you
Oh
know?
my gosh. I Michelle, I remember being in Italy one time at the post office the day we were scheduled to come home. So we were on our way to the airport. We stopped at the post office. This was somewhere in Tuscany. Anyway, we were waiting there and there were no lines. The people were just milling. No such thing as a line. We were there about 2 hours. We got up to the
Yeah.
window.
Oh,
We got up to
starfish?
the window. The woman pulled the shade down, and that was it. And she had her espresso, and that was it. And she took her half-hour coffee break or whatever it was, and that was the boundary. And when in Tuscany, do as they do. So you're absolutely right. Culture plays an important part. So we want to suspend the right wrong. Someone from a completely different culture, mm, it maintains a lot more distance. And 3 o'clock is 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock to an Italian is a suggestion, right? But 3 o'clock to some people is 3 o'clock, right? And
Yeah.
so people need to have these conversations or these understandings at least. Otherwise, it can get a little, there can be misunderstandings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
so
no,
yeah,
go
so
ahead, go ahead.
boundaries of space, boundaries of time, psychological boundaries. If someone intimidates you or gaslights you, bullies you, they're infringing on your right for psychological
Mhm.
privacy, psychological safety, right?
Yeah,
So that's another boundary. Money, money has boundaries.
yeah.
Okay, you know, or we have boundaries with money because money in and of itself is neutral. But what we do with money, we know money can be power and influence. But that aside, um, being a good steward of our money is a way to have a boundary, around our money. Having a reasonable budget is a way of maintaining a boundary around money so that we don't overspend and leak out and credit card and get into debt, etc. So that's another boundary.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't think I would have thought about that with finances, but it makes sense. It makes perfectly good sense as you're saying it. But we're overdue for taking a quick break. Talk about boundaries.
That went fast. That went, let's absolutely.
Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Stay with us.
It was a treat. It was a bonding. It was a celebration of men. It was a celebration of men who want to deepen in their spiritual awareness of one another, of themselves.
Welcome. We are a brotherhood of spiritually minded and open-hearted positive men. We invite you to join us.
And I came in knowing one person. I left knowing all of the group. And I feel like I came in knowing meeting strangers, but knowing and leaving brothers.
Come experience the New Thought Men's Gathering, Foundations 2024. Friday, March 15th through Sunday, March 17th. With Reverend Robert Brzezinski, Reverend Patrick Creelman, Reverend Eamon Duffy, and special guest musician Jamie Lula. In Vernonia, Oregon, at Camp Cedar Ridge. Learn more and register at www.newthoughtmens.community.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Welcome to Divine Interventions. I am Michelle Wadley, and my partner is Catherine Duca. We are here to marry psychological understanding with spiritual sensibilities, helping you to see the world through a filter of love and acceptance. We are here to blend the profound realms of spirituality and psychology to bring you a unique approach to practical happiness. Because we know that in the midst of life's challenges and struggles, you can find peace, joy, and fulfillment by harnessing the divine within and the power of the mind. It is our intention that each show will be a journey into the heart of what it means to be happy in a distracted world, a world that can often seem to be upside down. We'll share practices, insights, and actionable strategies to create a sense of peace and calm in your life so you too can discover the joy that lives within. If you're ready to become the architect of your own life, join us weekly as we travel together to the place within where love resides. I'm on a different side of the screen. So welcome back. We're glad you're still here with us. And so now Michael's just playing with me here, moving the screens around. The engineers in the back of the studio just love to play. You know, the thing about boundaries that I have found as a minister is, and this is going to sound a little counterintuitive, possibly, that when I'm being authentic and when I feel safe in the world, which to me, feeling safe is an inner job, an inner. It has to do with me connecting with the the non-local of me. That when I feel safe, that I can allow myself to be very vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I have to say, and I know I've said this before in the show, that in the 23 years of being in ministry, I have never felt taken for granted. Like nobody, who had my phone, because I'm one who gives out my phone number. And it was never abused. It was never abused. And I know a lot of people have different, philosophies around that. But I tie me feeling safe and walking in that my own kind of boundary, because I've created a boundary of safety, a mental safety, and a consciousness of feeling safe. And so then I'm able, and that's that porous you said before, that boundaries can be porous, right? So because I'm open and available, I'm not struggling to keep people out. It was known and communicated silently.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think that's a different kind of way to set up a boundary also.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I
You
mean?
know, every emotion, every emotional state, to say nothing of everything, has energy.
Right.
And so conviction and personal comfort has an energy that we exude. And
Mm-hmm.
so when one feels confident in one's boundaries,
Mm.
that kind of emits, kind of a
Mm-hmm.
vibe, and people just, for the most part, maybe not in 100% of the cases, but people can pick that up.
Right.
And they know, I also like I never feel taken advantage of. And like
Mm.
you, I'm pretty approachable. As a therapist, I'm pretty accessible.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever one time felt that was abused or taken advantage of.
Right. Right. That's a beautiful thing.
It
It's a
really is. It
thing.
really is. And
And
I think go ahead.
it speaks to personal responsibility.
I was just going to say that.
Oh,
You read my mind. Now, see, you came into my head, but that's a
right.
porous boundary, and I invite you there. You see, that's great.
But right, because when we take responsibility, right, then I'm owning the consciousness and the boundary. I'm owning it. I'm responsible for it.
I'm
I don't know where
responsible.
you were going to go with it, but
Well, that's kind of what I was getting to before of them. If someone gets a little close to the cones, as I call it, we don't have to get all worked up. We just can quietly remind the person or let.
mhm,
Now, okay, you know, every once in a while we have to make room for people who have a problem respecting
mhm,
boundaries. I mean, that's another,
right,
that's a certain, slice of the population that for some reason, probably if I were to simplify, because their boundaries were violated,
right,
probably at an early age. So they didn't grow up having that kind of respect for their own or others' boundaries. So they
mhm,
might infringe. But self accountability. And this is part of the big why. Why are we talking about boundaries? Because here we talk about self respect and self love and self acceptance. And when we have healthy boundaries, we are teaching people how to treat us.
yeah. I have a smile on my face because while I'm listening to you talk, I think about if you ever seen videos of the trains in Japan.
Oh gosh,
where people
boundaries.
are like
Oh my goodness.
shoving, like pushing and shoving before they can close the door. I'm pretty much okay a lot of the time. Go
That's a
figure.
little much. That's a little much.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a little much for me, and that's why I was just smiling because just because I think that's kind of funny, and so and then sometimes you'll be around people from another country, they're way close up, and I have what I when I do if I find myself in a situation where I think someone is encroaching on that space, I have to make the conscious choice to know I'm okay.
Hmm.
But I have the luxury of doing that as somebody who is, I'm in this conscious teaching. Most people don't have that. So most people's body armor, their body boundaries might kick in, right? It might kick in, and it might feel like fear, but in truth, it's their cones.
Hmm.
It's their cones, it's their safety measure.
Yeah. Yeah. Gee, I had a thought as you were talking, and of course it flew out of my head. Um, mm, it flew. It flew.
Okay.
But I think I was just by way of backdrop, and a little bit more about the why. Um, it's the self-respect and self-protection, and we're letting people know, spoken or
Mhm.
unspoken, how to treat us and how we, in kind, intend to treat others. You know, and I
Mhm.
think the boundary thing, of course, it works both ways. I have to examine myself and say, gee, have I unwittingly, gone too close to the cones of other people's boundaries? Let's say with time. Maybe I've done that with time. Maybe I've taken up a little too much of someone's time. And I can't really recall when I did that, but I probably have over my life. So anyway,
Mhm.
I'm just saying that the whole notion of boundaries is a two-way street. We're very aware of how others should respect
Mhm.
ours. Likewise, we should check in with ourselves. Hey, are we,
And
you know,
and I always
reinforcing?
like. I'm sorry.
No, I think we have a little delay here. Go ahead. Go.
And I always bring in the perspective for parents and grandparents. So my grandchildren, I've downloaded some games on my phone. They like to play on my phone, but it became a little bit of a nuisance that if we were driving in the car, that I had to open
Mm,
it, while I'm driving. So I chose to let my granddaughter, who's older, I chose to let her know what my password is. But we didn't tell her brother because he's younger and we weren't sure how that would go over. So she handled the responsibility pretty well. And then eventually now William also has it, so he feels like an equal. He's very happy about that. But then part of that though is it's a different kind of boundary. I want them to know I can trust them. Now I monitor it. I make sure I make sure that they're not pressing. Today, my granddaughter at one point, while handling the phone, read a text from her father to me. And I thought, I said, Lila, when the phone is in your hand, I need you to keep my text private. That's to be off
well,
the grounds. And
that's a
she
boundary.
seemed, yeah, and she seemed really good with that. And I think, well, if I just kind of tiptoe and let our trust build,
Yeah.
around the boundary, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
then they'll learn how to do that. And I want to trust them. I want to have that kind of relationship with them where I see them for who they are. I mean, they're kids. They're going to make a mistake, right? They're going to do that. But I know my husband and I, there's nothing, there's no boundaries in that way because there's trust with each other. So my phone, he can get into my phone. I can get into his phone because I feel safe. So boundaries boundaries can keep us safe, but sometimes boundaries are the result of needing to feel safe.
Yes.
So it all depends, right? It all depends upon where you come to it from.
Right.
Um, yeah, yeah, and you get to decide. You get to decide what that's like.
Right, right, right. You mentioned the example with your granddaughter, and I think that's so important. Yes, you're building up the trust, and you're letting her know that you you know you're honoring her capacity and her capability to handle this task. And of course it's got to be age appropriate, and it is for what you're doing, but you're transmitting to her this feeling and support that you 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 uphold and honor her young capacity
Yeah,
to protect this information. Like, that's a lifelong thing that she's going to build on.
yeah, that's my hope.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all these lessons come in, and around something so simple as a.
Yeah, so I have a strange thing. So tell me what you think about this. There's a local shop. I don't think we spoke about this here. There's a one of local shops that I love to go to right here in Denville. And I've known this woman now for years. I spent a lot of money in her store over the years, especially throughout the holidays. And I was telling her that I left the pulpit. I was starting, that I was building up my own business, and we talked business a little bit. And she said, it's really funny. People come in here, she said, and they ask me how business is. And I feel like that's very personal, and people shouldn't ask that. And I said to her, really? Because I would never have thought that that was personal. But for her, when someone crosses that boundary, she feels annoyed and she feels like they have crossed a boundary where they weren't welcomed in. And so sometimes we don't see the boundaries. That's the other thing, right? Not all boundaries are obvious. Some of them are very invisible. And I
Right,
think we have to learn to read the signals of each other. Like
right,
I
right.
might go to I might take a fork and want to get food off your plate. Now, I know you probably would let me, but the fact is some people do not want you to do that.
That's
Do
right.
not.
That's right. So I think the point there is not to approach, every situation according to our comfort
Right.
level, but to understand, oh, okay, I'm fine with you eating from my plate. In fact, I enjoy it. In fact, that's an intimate thing, and
Yeah,
that part of that is cultural. But I know that that does not play in
right,
certain, with certain people.
right.
But going back to the shopkeeper,
Uh-huh.
I could see, where that's a boundary.
Really?
I could see
Okay.
where that's a boundary. Um, Now it's not an obvious boundary, but I could see, because what occurs to me is, well, if business is booming, that's easy to talk about. Oh gosh, the line is out the door. I'm thriving. But if
Mhm.
business isn't so good, that's kind of a vulnerable and a private, and maybe a bit of
I guess.
information, right? Could carry. Well, if there are no customers coming in,
No,
or
no, I
it's.
guess you're right. You're right. I it took me a minute. It's like, and this is one of those places where I don't have to agree. My
Oh,
agreement
yeah,
is not
sure. No, it's,
necessary,
you don't have,
right?
right, right,
I'm
right.
just going to respect what this person said. But that again, it's what do I walk in the room with? That's what it comes back down to, right? What do I walk in with? Because it just wouldn't have crossed my mind. It wouldn't have. But I
Mm.
do want to respect people's boundaries. I do. I just found
How
it
about
interesting.
this one?
Okay.
How about this one? I learned the hard way, and I don't ask anymore. Are you planning to have any more children?
Oh,
Hmm? Yeah, because I think I may have asked someone along the way who, for whatever reason, couldn't have another child,
oh,
and so asking that was a little bit of a sting. Now, of course, did I mean anything by it? No. But
Right.
did I learn? And now do I extend that to people? And I may, maybe that makes me lean toward the other way of looking like I'm not interested in certain
Right.
topics. Nothing is further from the truth, but
Well, Kathy, that's not as bad as saying to somebody, "Are you pregnant?"
oh, it's not, no, that's,
All right, this is off subject, but
yeah, yeah.
boy, that's a mistake I will
know,
never.
yeah, I know. I know. See, it's hard. It's hard
Yeah.
to be mindful of these things. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say hard. It's rigorous to
Yeah.
challenge
Right.
ourselves to be tuned in and to be sensitive and to be mindful of
Right.
others.
So I want to make sure we take a minute. So I know that, oh, God bless our engineer behind the scenes. But if you
Oh
want
my
to
goodness.
flash Kathy's, yeah, we're at that time. Um,
We got to make
but
these 2 hours, Michelle. Let's go 2 hours.
oh God, no, not on Sunday night. I'm happy I'm not yawning. But Kathy, I want to talk about where they can get to you if they want more information about you and the book that
Yes,
you've written.
yes.
And that
Yes, you
is,
can reach
yeah,
me anytime you can email me anytime, Catherine@catherineduca.com.
okay.
And if you want to know what I'm up to, you can check out my website, catherineduca.com. And if you'd like to read something that happens to be the heart of my work, it's my book, Unmasked, Discover the Hidden Powers of Your True Self. It really is the heart of my work. And you,
Great,
Michelle?
great cover, great book and great cover.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm at the Planned Happiness Institute. And I am, we have courses coming and going all the time. And if you don't see a current course, you can always get on a waiting list. So you can, if the course is passed, you get on a waiting list and we'll inform you as soon as the course is scheduled. And I'm excited to say that I think it's in May. I don't know if Sandy Dell is still listening, but I think in May, I'm putting out a beta class, an entry-level forgiveness course for people that are not, is Unmasked on Audible.
It is not yet.
Oh, we got to
Not
fix
yet.
that.
Yeah. Should it
Fix
be? You think? Should it be?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, it should be.
Well then.
I'm an Audible girl, so I have so many Audibles. Yeah, so the course, it's going to be a beginner, like an entry, not a beginner, I don't mean that, but for people who are not plugged into spiritual communities, for the secular world, for people who might think of themselves as agnostic or don't necessarily have a religious or spiritual leanings, we're going to take out all the jargon and provide this course so that it's more available in a different way. And so that will be coming, I believe it's in May, but I don't even remember. I have so many things
I
going.
think Sandy's saying it's in April. Sandy
Oh,
Dell.
Sandy, thank you, Sandy. I didn't catch that. Oh, there she is. Okay. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate that. So we remain available to you. We're here for your inquiries about things. We look forward to you being here each and every week. As you see, we love to acknowledge. So those of you who've been listening, I don't know who has been listening on the New Thought Media page and been responding, but I'm so glad you were here. And thank you. Oh, Dawn Lee, there you go. It was Dawn Lee that asked that question. I thought it was your Dawn. Okay, Dawn Lee. And thank you, Sandy, for being here, and Dana. And we really love and appreciate our audience, especially those of you who come back each and every Sunday.
We've got some loyal listeners already, and that makes us feel terrific, doesn't it? That's
Lovely.
Really, you honor
Now,
us.
next week, Kathy's doing a solo show, we think, or she might have a guest. We'll see what happens. But next week is my party, my retirement party. So I'm going to be busy having a good old time.
You need to be. You need to be. That's great.
Yes,
That's great. Well, we'll miss you, but I invite listeners to tune in and watch me try to
you did fine.
impossible fill Michelle's shoes. Can't be done. but I'll give it a shot, and I'd love to have you all.
I
back.
wear a 9.5, Kathy. What size shoe do you wear? Besides,
Is that rhetorical? Let's keep that rhetorical.
You don't want to fill these shoes. These are not shoes that you would want to fill. Trust me. All right, everyone. We love you.
We love you.
Bold and beautiful and brilliant.
Yes.
See you soon. Thanks, Kathy. Good night, love.
Thank you, Michelle. Good night.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.